On this Friday night, exclusive details about an accused mass murderer.
Never had any issues growing up.
What we're learning about the Ottawa family killed and the lone survivor's connection to the suspect. Funding controversy. Ottawa resumes its support for the UN's relief agency in Gaza. The clock is ticking for TikTok.
If I lose this, I literally will not be able to pay my rent.
The American ultimatum for the app's Chinese owners. Plus, the power of representation.
Take time to listen.
The Indigenous movie makers breaking barriers and stereotypes.
Global National with Farah Nasser. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. We're getting our first look tonight at the 5 family members killed in a horrific attack on an Ottawa home. Darshni Akin-Aika and her 4 children, the youngest just 2 months old, were killed Wednesday in the suburb of Barhaven. The children's father remains in hospital with serious injuries. A family friend was also killed. All were recent newcomers to Canada. A suspect is in custody, and tonight we're learning more from his aunt in an exclusive interview. Mackenzie Gray has the details and a warning that some of them are disturbing.
This is 19-year-old Febrio De-Zoysa, who police allege killed 6 people he lived with Wednesday night. And in an exclusive interview with Global News, his aunt, an Ottawa resident of 18 years, couldn't fathom how this happened.
Quiet, like never violent, never had any issues growing up. He was like so pampered boy.
The accused lived with his aunt briefly in Ottawa when he arrived 2 years ago on an international student visa, but quickly moved out, and then a year later, removed his aunt's family completely from his life.
He stopped contacting with us. He blocked us, our phone numbers, social media. Everything was blocked. We were blocked from his life.
While studying at Algonquin College, De-Zoysa met Danushka Vikramasinghe, the father and husband to 5 of the dead, and the only survivor of De-Zoysa's alleged attack. The pair had previously lived together and became roommates again in the past few months, according to a monk who knows the family.
Middle finger gone, and the other one is repaired, and some injuries back and front, and also on the face, close to nose and the ear, eyes, he's a big cut.
Despite allegedly murdering his entire family and leaving him seriously injured, Vikramasinghe told a friend in hospital after undergoing surgery on Friday that he hopes a compassionate view can be taken towards the accused.
Because he was saying things like, yeah, my life is in shambles, but the person that committed the crime is a young boy too, and let's think about him as well too.
Vikramasinghe arrived in Canada roughly 2.5 years ago from Sri Lanka without his now deceased wife and children. They joined him in the summer of 2023 at their suburban Ottawa home. But in an interview with Global News, the property owner said he had no idea the accused was living with them. Neither did their next-door neighbor, who called 911 after the injured father banged on her door.
And they've been nothing but lovely, super quiet, hardworking, really kind people.
A sentiment echoed by the accused aunt.
Too, they were like such wonderful family. They treated him better than us, basically. It could have been my family in that situation. It could have been.
Even with all the new information, Jeff, one thing's still not clear: a motive, and why someone would allegedly kill 6 people, including a 2-month-old.
Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa. Thanks, Mac. On the heels of our Global News investigation into Ontario's group home industry, we're learning new details now about problems in Manitoba. That province is investigating a group home where teens were given marijuana as a means of harm reduction. Some are pointing the finger at the government and citing a lack of support for high-needs youth. Melissa Ridgen reports.
Manitoba has Canada's highest percent of kids in government care, around 10,000 at any given time. The bill to taxpayers, more than $500 million a year. But advocates say what's missing is resources for kids dealing with mental health and addictions. And that has led some caregivers, like group home Spirit Rising House, to get creative with how they minimize the risk of kids seeking harder drugs.
I think their approach, of harm reduction by taking that into their own hands, it was quite concerning.
But she says it's happening across the child welfare system. The province says it's investigating Spirit Rising House that runs 13 group homes housing 30 kids in Winnipeg.
You're talking about some of the young people with the highest needs in Manitoba who are being treated in an inappropriate way and who deserve far better. So I fully support our Minister of Families who took immediate action in that instance to cut ties with the organization in question.
Parents of a 17-year-old girl in the group home who has battled hard drugs since age 12 disagree.
They can hand out clean needles on the streets and hand out Narcan, but it's not okay to give a kid pot, which I know that doesn't do any damage to anybody. It's saving my daughter's life.
The Manitoba Children's Advocate says successive NDP and Conservative governments have seen more kids taken into government care than the system can handle and lacks a strategy for the highest needs kids. Spirit Rising House tells Global News it feels like a political lamb at slaughter. The company started 3 years ago under the previous Conservative government.
We were asked over and over to open new resources, put ourselves into a deficit and into personal debt to open more homes.
The new NDP government now wants to shut it down.
So closing down Spirit Rising House is not going to solve any of the problems.
Many parents agree.
It's a good place, and I absolutely love and respect all those workers at Spirit Rising.
Yeah, change the rules, don't take away the placement. That they're doing a great job.
Parents and support workers tell Global News the possibility of the province shutting down Spirit House Rising is having a destabilizing effect on these vulnerable youth. The fate of their home now in the hands of politicians. Melissa Ridgen, Global News, Winnipeg.
The RCMP announced it will not be laying charges following its probe into Alberta's 2017 United Conservative Party leadership race. The force says it found no evidence to support claims that Jeffrey Callaway entered the race solely to attack another candidate and then endorse Jason Kenney. Police also investigated allegations of voter fraud.
The Alberta RCMP determined that there were suspected instances of potential fraud. However, there was insufficient evidence to charge any suspect.
The RCMP says those suspected instances of fraud were relatively rare and would not have affected the final outcome. Police also found no evidence that any candidate was involved. Canada has resumed funding the United Nations Relief and Works Agency in Gaza. Those funds were frozen following allegations some of its workers were involved in the Hamas attack on Israel. Ottawa says the money is needed to deliver humanitarian aid to civilians in Gaza. David Aiken joins us now. So, David, what was behind the government's decision here?
Well, Jeff, Canada has now reviewed an interim report. It's a report not yet made public into allegations that UNRWA employees participated in the Hamas attacks of October 7th.
UNRWA is the backbone of the humanitarian response to the needs of Palestinian civilians in Gaza, while acknowledging the steps that have been taken both by UNRWA and by the larger UN to address some of the concerns that we've had.
But the decision to resume doing business with UNRWA is a controversial one, even within Hussein's own caucus. Liberal MPs Marco Mendicino and Anthony Housefather released a statement Thursday saying Canadian aid should indeed flow to suffering Palestinian civilians, but UNRWA should not deliver that aid.
UNRWA has had a long history of employees at UNRWA who have been involved in teaching anti-Semitic materials at schools, a misconduct amongst the senior executives of UNRWA.
Hussein also announced the Canadian military will help with airdrop programs operated by Jordan and the World Food Program. Ottawa will donate $100,000 and give Jordan's Air Force 300 parachutes. Now, while Canada had announced a pause in payments to UNRWA, it had not actually missed any payments. Canada's next scheduled payment is due in April, and that $25 million contribution will now proceed next month. Jeff?
David Aiken in Ottawa. Thanks, David. Aid groups are looking for new ways to deliver supplies to Gaza. The European Union just revealed a maritime corridor to deliver aid from Cyprus that could begin this weekend. It follows U.S. President Joe Biden's announcement last night that the U.S. will build a temporary pier on Gaza's Mediterranean coast. Crystal Goomansingh reports on the plans and the pitfalls.
A Cypriot Rescue Coordination Center could soon be tracking aid shipments to Gaza. The 15-hour journey laid out for the president of the European Commission.
We are launching this Cyprus maritime corridor together. Cyprus, the European Union, the United Arab Emirates, and the United States.
The Cyprus Maritime Corridor aims at scaling up aid by complementing other routes that include the all-important Rafah crossing point.
Unlocking all possible routes to get aid into Gaza is the goal. Airdrops haven't eased the crisis, nor have land crossings. The materials are there, but the trucks aren't moving as needed, according to this video recorded by the head of the Norwegian Refugee Council.
Because the system is completely broken.
Shipments by sea could get huge quantities of aid to those in desperate need quickly. As part of his State of the Union address, the U.S. president announced the building of a temporary pier off the coast of Gaza.
That can receive large shipments carrying food, water, medicine, and temporary shelters.
Israel welcomed the initiative, according to a statement by the spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But it stated the aid would move after security checks are carried out in accordance with Israeli standards. That could lead to similar backlogs like those at land crossings, and it will take time to build a pier.
I think it's a sign that the world knows just how desperate the situation has become in Gaza. But I also think it's a sign that they don't see a ceasefire is likely to happen soon.
With widespread hunger, especially in the north, President Biden called on Israel to do its part, saying aid must not be a secondary consideration or a bargaining chip. Crystal Goomansingh, Global News, London.
TikTok coming up. Time may be running out for American users of the social media app.
Well, this is a first for me as well.
Not your typical traffic jam on Canada's busiest highway. Linen racks filled with uniforms littered Toronto's 401 after falling from a transport truck. The cleanup caused traffic chaos this afternoon. The driver of the truck was charged with having an insecure load. Washington wants to force the sale of TikTok, the popular video sharing app used by millions around the world. U.S. lawmakers have approved a bill that could push the Chinese owners of the app to sell or be banned in America. Jackson Prosco reports on the TikTok Showdown.
Help us to keep TikTok alive in America by calling your congressman.
TikTokers suddenly have a lot to talk about.
Hi, I heard that you're trying to shut down TikTok.
Yeah. They've been bombarding members of Congress with angry phone calls at the social media giant's urging.
If I lose this, I literally will not be able to pay my rent.
The effort seems to have backfired. This week, lawmakers voted unanimously to advance a bipartisan bill that could ban the platform in the U.S.
This foreign interference and manipulation is not welcome here. The threats posed by TikTok are real.
The concern is over TikTok's Chinese parent company, ByteDance. There are fears that user data and a powerful tool for influence are controlled by the Chinese government. The proposed law would require ByteDance to sell off TikTok within 6 months or be banned from the U.S.
ByteDance is not owned or controlled by the Chinese government. It's a private company.
The U.S. and Canada have already banned TikTok from government devices over security concerns. But with 170 million users in the U.S. alone, a wider ban would be tricky politics, especially in an election year. President Joe Biden's campaign is on TikTok.
Jason Kelce or Travis Kelce?
Mama Kelce.
But he supports the proposed law.
If they pass it, I'll sign it.
Donald Trump, who tried to ban the app as president, is now campaigning against the legislation.
It's really become central to the social media landscape. And so if you lose TikTok, then, you lose access to a lot of creators.
The biggest concern comes from the platform's content creators and entrepreneurs who rely on TikTok's tremendous reach for their businesses.
TikTok has allowed me and my family to share our livelihoods with all of y'all.
Their influence may not be enough to overcome fears about China's possible control, even if the proposed ban faces a long road before actually becoming law. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
Still ahead, at risk of being erased, the growing fears for hundreds of Armenian heritage sites. Welcome back. An update now on the tensions and border crisis between Armenia and Azerbaijan. This week, Azerbaijan demolished the building that once housed the Armenian parliament of Nagorno-Karabakh. Azerbaijan recaptured the region last year, and more than 100,000 ethnic Armenians fled. The landlocked region has been the subject of a long-standing territorial dispute, and there are now growing concerns about what will happen to churches, graveyards, and other cultural sites. Redmond Shannon reports.
Ilham Aliyev won a fifth term as Azerbaijan's president in February with 92% of the vote, ignoring international observer concerns about voting irregularities. He called the election early after Azeri troops gained full control of Nagorno-Karabakh last September, following partial gains in the short war of 2020. The final Azeri push resulted in more than 100,000 ethnic Armenians quickly fleeing to Armenia, among them former lawmaker Artak Beglarian.
The majority feel helpless in this chaotic situation.
Many refugees are concerned about what is happening to religious buildings and cultural sites in the land they left behind, a place known to Armenians as Artsakh.
And this is very concerning that there is no international monitoring mission in Artsakh, and Azerbaijan blocks any kind of access.
This video that aired on an Azeri YouTube channel in January shows apparently vandalized gravestones at an ethnic Armenian military graveyard. Global News has verified its location to be in a village that Azerbaijan captured last September. Armenian-American Christina Moranci is a professor of Armenian studies.
It's a form of terrorism, if you will, a form of psychological terrorism that does the job of distressing the people who care about those sites, like that cemetery.
The group Caucasus Heritage Watch at Cornell University in New York uses satellite images to document recent and historical damage to Armenian and Azeri cultural sites in different parts of the Caucasus region. Those researchers and Moranci say damage to Azeri sites over the years has been smaller compared to what they call state-sponsored campaigns of removal by Azerbaijan.
You can only predict the future based on the past, and if we look at the past and we look at past precedent, then we have to be worried that such erasure will happen again, and it is happening.
The Azerbaijani government did not respond to a Global News request for comment on alleged acts of damage and destruction in Nagorno-Karabakh since 2020. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Search efforts are underway in Nigeria for more than 280 school children abducted by armed gunmen in the country's northwest. Witnesses say the mass kidnapping happened after assailants stormed a school Thursday morning. At least one man was shot dead during the attack. Authorities say he tried to save the students, who are between 8 and 15 years old. No group has claimed responsibility, but abductions are common strategies for bandits seeking ransoms. It's Nigeria's second mass kidnapping in just a week after Islamic extremists kidnapped 200 people last Friday. Next, reclaiming culture. The Indigenous filmmakers working to expose raw realities on this International Women's Day.
You know, you got nice color skin. What color would you say that is?
My color.
That was Leonardo DiCaprio and breakout star Lily Gladstone in Killers of the Flower Moon. Gladstone's role as an Osage woman in 1920s Oklahoma has earned her an Oscar nomination, making her the first Indigenous American woman to be nominated for the Lead Actress Academy Award. And tonight, we're taking a closer look at the powerful voices of Indigenous women in the Canadian film industry. As the world marks International Women's Day, a new film is making its debut across Canada, following two Inuit women as they work to reclaim their language and culture. Nuthu Garcha has more on how the pair hopes to impact future generations.
It's a story that follows the journey of two Inuit women as they confront domestic violence and substance abuse and embark on a journey of healing.
The message to all the viewers is take time to listen, not to judge us right away just because.
The film, called Tautuktivuk, delves into the raw realities of Inuit women in northern Canada.
There is help out there. Don't ever give up. There's always help.
The film tiptoes between truth and fiction with aspects drawn from their personal experiences.
Some conversations I had with my mother as a child, and some of it is based on what I saw.
She says the decision to incorporate both English and Inuktitut was crucial for reclaiming their culture, and it's resonating with fans like Debbie Corshane.
It was really softened for me because of the use of the language.
Corshane, an Anishinaabe comedian, says it's about reshaping narratives and ensuring stories are authentically represented on screen.
And it's so profound because so many times the story is told from the outside perspective, and so this time it's from the community itself.
She says she's inspired by the growing representation and success of Indigenous women, like Lily Gladstone's historic Oscar nomination for Best Actress.
And I was like, go Lily!
And Katarina Ziervogel's role in Marvel's Echo, elevating both her Indigenous and deaf cultures.
Part of the problem was with when I was growing up, there were a lot of barriers, so I didn't have that strong sense of self.
As Tautuktivuk premieres across Canada on International Women's Day, the filmmakers hope their tales of truth help nurture a legacy of inclusion, healing, and hope for generations to come. Neetu Garcha, Global News, Vancouver.
And that is Global National for this Friday night. I'm Jeff Semple. Tonight's Your Canada is the Elbow River in Calgary. We love seeing your Canada, so please keep emailing your photos to viewers@globalnational.com. Thanks for watching. Neetu will be at the anchor desk with you tomorrow. Have a great night.